First of all, I think your analysis was very straight line. History doesn't run in a straight line.
Kid, you cannot tell your neighbor he is stealing ducks when you are stealing frogs.
As High Commissioner, I was wrong. As Charandas Prasad, I reacted naturally how any person would have.
I did not come here for that kind of abuse. I did not come here for that kind of abuse. If you're going to go along that road, I'll walk off.
But it's all okay once they're talking. If they weren't talking, I could not have been here today.
You got ADHD.
I got that.
Calm down.
I think I've done enough in terms of taking our team out of trouble from losing.
Come on, Lou Taylor. That's good. I'm reading the script now, and the first person that comes to my mind to play a detective,
Yes,
but
okay,
an
he's good too.
erratic
Mikhail
detective,
Rodriguez.
Mikhail Rodriguez.
Why an African supping in yon? Why a man and slap a woman? Look, Gildarie, you deal with that. You deal with that.
We must encourage platforms like this because it brings together different people and allows for discussions to take place in our country on a multiplicity of fundamental issues.
Gildarie, you apologizing for something you think I did is wrong. I don't want you to do that, and you should not have done that. Hello there, you are watching a live program coming to you live on your smartphone or your smart TV. This is the Freddie Kissoon Gildarie Show. We've been coming to you the past 20 months. This is the last program for January 2024, which means we have completed 24 months. We have a packed studio this evening with loaded, that may be the wrong term, but with sensitive political questions. We have 3 guests this evening that will discuss aspects of politics in Guyana, and you can't want more combined years of political experience. So please listen to them because they have been around a long time and they've been there and done that. One of our guests is Malcolm DeFreitas. I spent childhood days in Workmanville with Malcolm. Malcolm was one of the persons who in 1990 or earlier, he will tell us, resurrected the traditional United Force Party of Pitedigal, and it was named TUF. It contested the election in 1992 and won a seat in Parliament. One of the actors behind the resurrection of the United Force, a third party in 1992. Malcolm is also known to have contested municipal elections. He contested the Kingston constituency for the Georgetown City Council twice. He is currently the treasurer of the Theatre Guild and also a director at the Theatre Guild, meaning director of plays. Next to me is Rajendra Bissesar. Rajendra and I went to UG together in the 70s, so I've known him since then. After the 92 election, he held some high-profile jobs, advisor to the Minister of Human Services and personal aide to President Barrett Jagdeo in the office of the President. And then there is Michael Carrington. Michael Carrington has been a parliamentarian in the 2015 Parliament, from 2015 to 2020, serving with the APNU AFC government. He's been a parliamentarian in that period, and he functioned as a national executive member of the AFC and a member of the management committee. Having said all of that, I think they are competent enough to discuss politics, and I think they have the experience to discuss politics. We go alphabetically, so it's Rajendra Bissesar, then Michael Carrington and Malcolm DeFreitas. So we like to thank all three of these gentlemen for the success of the program. This is the 4th time that they have graced our studio, and we like to thank them for the past 20 months that they have been our guest. Rajendra, thanks for being here once again. Malcolm?
Thanks for Michael. Thanks for
Before we show a clip that I think contradicts what Michael Carrington and Rajendra Bissesar have said in this studio on 3 occasions, just let me get in this little thing about Malcolm DeFreitas. There was a call-in program, and Jerry Gavaya said, we have to treat Malcolm specially because there are only 2 politicians left of Portuguese descent in Guyana, so we must, preserve them. That's Malcolm DeFreitas and Kit Nascimento. But I think Jerry forgot the guy from Anug, and now he is with Jonathan. He's with the Civil Society Group, Article 13, Jonathan Yearwood. So those are the 3 Portuguese in politics left. And so according to Jerry Gavaya, we have to nurture them. So I don't know if we have to nurture Malcolm DeFreitas. But specifically to Michael Carrington and Rajendra Bissesar, I'd like the 2 of you to listen to this clip. It's a long clip. I think it's just under 3.5 minutes. Operator, can you play this clip, please?
Blame people in the same way that I can't say as AFC we were bullied by the APNU. You as a national executive member, you can't say you were bullied by the ministers. That's nonsense. As a party, political person, you are elected member of that national executive committee, right? You can't be bullied by anybody. You can take action too. You can caucus among people and take action. And I'm simply saying that, the same accusation that you're hurling against the ministers or whoever it is or the party can be applied at the other end where, you're saying that this was a powerless, helpless body of second-tier national executive persons who could do nothing. I don't buy that. I really don't buy that. I'll admit that certain, there were issues, there were altercations sometimes, and but at the same, I don't want to get into personal stuff and so, but I don't agree that the portrayal of the National Executive Committee, which is supposed to be the decision-making body, as this helpless group of persons who were being led, misled, bullied or whatever by the leadership, that doesn't paint a complete picture. That's my honest opinion.
Yeah, in my opinion, it may not paint a complete picture, and a complete picture cannot be painted without going into specifics. And let me use one specific, and I don't want to use names, but
the specific is indicative of a trend.
Yes. All right. This is nothing personal, but
say it. History is being recorded. Say it.
For example, Noel Holder was appointed Minister of Agriculture. And I'm saying this as a fact because I think it's in the public domain. Noel Holder did say that, I am not a political person, right? I am a professional. And when I go to the ministry, I will administer the ministry professionally with my professional ethics and what have you. However, the Ministry of Agriculture has been the most political ministry in the history of Guyana. That it is out of that ministry, or out of that sector, that all these these trade unions and all of that was born. The Enmore Martyrs, it is out of that agriculture setup, right? Governed under the Ministry of Agriculture. So it has been the most political entity in the history of Guyana, from sugarcane, slavery, rebellion, all of that, agriculture. And if you are going to appoint somebody and they're saying to you and saying to the public that I am a professional and I'm not interested so much in politics, you have created the avenues to lose some of your political activism that will set you on the path to win the next election. You've
I have heard Bissesar and Carrington talk about where the AFC went wrong. I did a Kaicho News published interview with Bissesar. We sat down in the National Park and he talked about the bullying attitude of Kemba Ramjatan. Ramjatan didn't want to see an Indian rise up. He was insecure. But I know from my own journalistic investigation, there was a cabal inside the AFC that ran the show. But Gaskin is saying no, alphabetically. Let's go to Bissesar. You heard that? Do you agree with Gaskin? Is there any validity in what Gaskin was saying?
You know, it makes me remember when the excuse me. It wasn't me. It was them. I mean, we were willing to do it, but this executive of the AFC didn't push us to do it. They did not hold us accountable, so it's not our fault. That's the impression I get, you know. You executive are the ones at fault because you guys should have held us accountable. So that is, in fact, what seems to me Gaskin is saying. So, or he's saying, you all are just as bad as we are. We didn't do what we had to do, and you didn't do what you had to do, so all of us are guilty. But let us understand this carefully. I recall the last time they had elections in the executive. And myself and Carrington were the two ones who sponsored a resolution at the conference before. And we determined that the management committee would be expanded. And the management committee was expanded. But at that particular executive meeting after the elections, when the time came to vote for the people from the executive to go into the management committee, Trotman got up right away, as he was the leader at the time, I think, got up right away and said, I nominate, and he nominated Moses and another minister. He nominated two ministers, which would have brought the amount of ministers in the management committee to 6, and plus the prime minister 7, which would have dominated would have had the majority in the management committee. So this is what they did. I said, Trotman, you cannot do this. It was expanded. When Carrington tried to tell them, no, the decision was taken to expand, therefore we can elect more. They refused to accept that took place. In other words, they denied that the history, that the decision was taken at conference, that the management committee was expanded. They wanted to dominate that management committee, obviously. So that is I think Carrington can bear that out. So what they did eventually was, at the management committee itself, try to nominate people to bring them to expand the committee. And I said, Trotman, the baby cannot produce itself. It's illegal. It is the executive that has to create the management committee, and the management committee cannot expand itself. But they went along. In other words, at one of the retreat, when I raised the question of holding the government accountable, Kemba Ramjatan jumped up and said, we are ministers, we are in cabinet, we are collectively responsible. We cannot hold them accountable. So I told him, I said, well, the party can hold them accountable. If the ministers can, the party can. He said yes, but that was never, and that is why maybe at the next time, they made sure the ministers dominated the Congress. One last point I'd like to make. The parties are the same. In the PPP, Congress makes decision. in between Congress, the Central Committee is a major decision-making, highest body between Congress. But it has morphed into a situation where the executive makes a decision, pass it down to the Central Committee sort of vote on it. And it reached a stage where the executive took a decision that if the members of the executive took a decision, and let's say 7 oppose and 8 is for, the 7 cannot go at the Central Committee and argue against the executive decision. So the people who could have articulated, had the discussion taken place at the Central Committee, the person who could have articulated a dissent or an alternative view was absent. So the Central Committee members simply rubber stamped what the executive did. And that is what's happening there. The executive meets once every 3 months or whatever it is. But it is a management committee that made all the decision. It was a management committee.
You're talking about the FC, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It was a management committee that took the decision and made the decision who were going to be ministers and who were not going to be ministers. It wasn't taken to the executive, and because they dominated the management committee, they simply selected themselves. With regard to the part with the agricultural minister, people know this, I don't want to repeat it again, that I was unanimously nominated by the FC. It was sent to Granger. Now, they were the ones supposed to stand up and say, look, this is the political ministry. This ministry is where our support, a lot of our support came from. And if Noel was going to be this guy, offhand guy, and not political, you need somebody who could be political and interact with that base. But the ministers who were there, or the leading members and dominating did not say, Granger, well, what you're doing, this is our nomination. This is our ministry. We have to decide. So
we're having here not a partial, but an absolute refutation of what Gaskin said. You're refuting what Gaskin said.
100%.
100%.
I mean, he's passing the buck to somebody else. And let me show you my last point. You talk about, it was mentioned about Nigel Hughes. The fact is, Nigel Hughes on a number of occasions came to the management committee and said he was supposed to be the team that was supposed to liaison with the team from the APNU to discuss if we have differences on position or disputes with regard to the accord or the implementation of the accord. And more, he came to us and said, look, these people are refusing to meet with me. They keep promising and they keep postponing it. They're refusing. So the two committees never met. Secondly, he even raised the point, why is it our ministers in cabinet are not saying anything? We even discussed at one point that, okay, to show we have some problem with what's going on, let our ministers arrive late to cabinet meeting, just to show some level of, look, we don't like what's going on. Nothing.
Okay. Carrington, you heard what, when you were speaking there, my mind was in a certain direction because Gaskin was speaking to someone. I was speaking to two persons who knew what was going on in the AFC, because I know what Leonard Craig was fighting for, and you and him. But he was speaking to someone, me, who knew the conspiracy, the domination, the elitism that was going on inside the AFC from day one. When the AFC won that election, 2015, they were doomed. As the days and the weeks went on, you knew that was a first term, and that was first term government. But you want to comment on what Gaskin said, because it directly relates to you and him.
Yeah, basically what he's saying is that how nobody, no leaders or anybody bully anybody in the national executive. They weren't, I wouldn't say is such a bully. What you have a culture in political parties here where a lot of people who joined the party, who actually was brought in actually by the leaders. Because remember, you have what is called executive election. And when you have executive election, leaders go around and look for people who they want to sit on the executive. And they market those people to sit on the executive. And when those people go and sit on those executive, if the leadership do anything wrong, on that executive or do anything wrong anyway. They didn't communicate or anything. Those people who was basically handpicked to be elected by the leadership, they basically stay quiet. All the years since I entered the AFC, I wore right through to fix the AFC right. Because I think that Guyana had badly need a third force. You and all, you had many discussion over that third force issue. And you yourself think that our Guyana had need a third force. And when joining the AFC, wasn't joining the AFC to fight up to be a minister or to be in government. My joining the AFC was to prevent a winner-take-all government. Because that is what was preached at that particular time with Mistress Holder, Trotman, and Mr. Ramjatan. So those were my goals. So when I go into the party, I try from the inception to start shaping the party. Internal, we had a lot of internal battle, especially with me. I was like, if I am the bad egg within the party, I was like the opposition in the opposition since we start.
Two of us.
If you ask any one of them, I never stop in terms of arguing. And
I know that.
So nobody could not, they basically couldn't shut me up. Nobody couldn't shut me up internal in the party, because if I feel something is wrong, I'd say that is wrong. If I feel like Comrade, you should not do this, I tell Comrade plain to your face that he should not do this. So they didn't bully, but what they had, you could not have had the support base if you wanted to push a particular direction, because the people who are the executive is basically handpicked and was elected because the leadership actually nominate them. And when leadership nominate people, people don't really want it to go against leadership. Me, I was elected many times as the executive without going and ask anybody for their vote. Anybody for their vote. I never go out and campaign and all kind of thing for get my vote. I normally go in different places across the country, reach people, do my work, do my groundwork, talk to people and those type of thing. And when the election comes, people vote for me. The last election, they had a big campaign against me because me and basically Comrade hardly used to see eye to eye on many things. So the party, I think after Sheila had passed away, she used to actually hold the party, hold the two leaders together. After she passed away, and when we won that 2050 election, I think things changed. Between 2005 and 2015, we had it wasn't perfect, but we had a fairly good run party. But after
once you got into power,
once you get into power and everybody start taking the responsibility shift from party to management, the party end up actually, in my opinion, suffer within that period of time, because all the focus now is on basically on governance of the country. So the party ended up suffering lack of communication. One of the major problem the party had is communication with its membership. All through the years, they're never able to get, we have thousands, about 15 to 16,000 persons join the party, but the communication between party and the individuals who joined the party was one of our major problem. And if you don't have proper communication with your membership, you're gonna lose them somehow or the other. If they're not seeing you, they're not hearing with you, if they don't have a call, if they don't have a letter or whatever. So we had, as long as we enter government and the power, everybody become powerful, like leaders and ministers and those type of thing, and had to run the ministries and all kind of thing. Communication was the problem. Even when we in government, they wanted the problems they have, and the AFC, if they don't change that, it would not work. The party would not develop.
What you mean if they? I'm going to bring in Malcolm. Yeah. What you mean if they don't change that? The AFC exists, Malcolm DeFreitas?
The AFC?
Yeah.
The name is all wrong still.
The AFC you're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, I would think that the AFC seems to exist.
The names is all wrong still.
But the issue we have, and I think that both contributors made that. We have a problem of adherence to leadership as a cultural phenomenon. And persons of critical minds who look at the issue at hand and try to make adjustments in relation to the issue at hand has problems with leadership. And I do agree, and I've seen it happen in the TUF, that when leaders get into power or into political office, there seems to be a separation from the ideals and concepts of the party. It even starts to affect the internal party arrangements of how the party will do its internal dynamics. And I think that's a problem we have. And I think unless we can stream that away, we will have what we call tit-for-tat politics instead of having what we call developmental politics. If we were in politics and we were saying, hey, our idea in politics is to be the servant of the people. That's the basic concept a good politician works with, right? Now, if he says that I'm going to be the servant of the people, you have to understand what the people is asking for, so you got to communicate, right? You have to be able to understand what is development. Where does development come from? We have advocated in our country one time a movement to the left. Now we have a movement to the right, and I don't know where we're going now, because we seem to be going outside of a political continuum in this administration where they are now. So that is where we are. So the basics of determining how do we progress as a nation has now become confused. And that is a problem for the average person who becomes now alienated. The person who go to university, the next thing they're looking for is to export themselves. So we're exporting our brains, we're exporting our nurses, we're exporting basically all the talent that we are trying to develop, we are exporting them. Why? Two reasons. The opportunities in Guyana is not giving them an opportunity to feel that I am a part of the developmental process and I'm prepared to burn because of the betterment for the country, right? So it's a totally different dynamic of where politics is now going. So, and that is disturbing as a phenomenon.
If I may,
I can't agree with your portrait, Malcolm. I mean, I must say, I disagree with this pessimism about Guyana. I think
I'm not pessimistic about Guyana.
Guyana's future looks secure.
I'm pessimistic about the politics in which we play.
Right. I'm not pessimistic about our politics either. Well, I think our politics are changing. Politics become very degrading when you have an economy of needs that cannot be fulfilled. Look, basically in political theory, you're going to get dissatisfied people when they don't have food to put on the table. But anyway, I can't take up your time.
Let me just say this. I want to take up this point that he made, which is an excellent point. And some people will say you took the colonialism left, but the colonial mentality remained. We were taught as a colonial people, we look up to white people, you know. When the white man come to your house, you get the best table for you. When the capitalist come to your businessman come to your house, oh God, he get the best treatment. He treats you like crap in the workplace, but when he comes to your wedding house, you get special table laid out for him. Like the girl who went to America and said, Mommy, look at all the manager over there.
Come to the point.
The point is, we look up to leaders with awe, as if they are on some pedestal. And one of the problems we face is that we have not, as he said, what leader make decision, we follow. And in fact, at the election time in Congress or whatever, the leaders sometimes send a wrong list who you must vote for. And when the people go and vote, the first people they're going to vote for is the ministers. They take off the minister's name. When they don't take off the minister's name, then they go to the rest. But let me just say this. When you go to elections in a Congress, right, you have to recognize when you're in power, And I'm saying this because the PPP Congress is coming up. And I did write
the PNC Congress is coming up in August.
Also. So I remember writing a letter to the press.
When is the AFC Congress coming up? Anyway.
I wrote a letter to the press suggesting to the members of the AFC not to elect persons in leadership of the management committee and so on who are in government. If the leaders who are in government are the leaders of the party has no capability to hold the government accountable. So if you want this country to straighten up and act in the interest of the people, when you go to Congress or your conference, and I'm addressing the PPP membership, the PNC membership, and the AFC membership, if these are the persons who are in government and are ministers, do not elect them to the Central Committee. They should be sitting in the Central Committee as ex officio without voting rights. They should be sitting in the executive as ex officio without voting rights, so that the voice of the ordinary people can hold these people accountable. But the major problem we have in this country is a list system that makes the people not kowtow or relate to the people who have to elect them, the masses. We have a list system, so you got to kiss the head of the person who control the list if you want to get a little work. You want to get a minister work, or you want to go in parliament. In other words, the list system generated by the Constitution holds people, and that's why people are afraid to even speak out. Let me just last point. They're afraid to speak out. So we have to have a situation where when you go to Congress, bear in mind what I'm saying. Do not elect the leaders of the government into leaders of the party. If you do that, you have no say, and they will not act in your interest.
That, of course, doesn't obtain in any country in the world. No party, no ruling party is going to refuse to elect Macron of France, Rishi Sunak. The Conservatives are going to meet and not elect the Prime Minister in the Executive Committee. The BJP is going to meet and Modi is not elected. It sounds good on paper, but in the real world. But let's get your round of discussion, and then we go to something that all three of you were involved in. And that is why I selected this panel of people who were involved in third parties that were successful. Malcolm and his Portuguese, quote unquote, his Portuguese acolytes or colleagues resurrected the United Force and they won a seat. You two guys...
This guy is an open mind, okay? You don't call me Indian or him American. Why you call this guy Portuguese?
You two guys. Well, it's not you. Johnny Gavaya said we have two Portuguese left and we must nurture them. I'm saying there was Jonathan Learwood.
Nurture you, okay?
I can deal with that.
The two of you were involved in a third party that came to power and had so much promise. Now, what?
I just had to...
have your contribution, then we're going to go to the third party.
One of the major problems I see happening with most of the parties is that you have these people, just like Bissesar was just saying, you have these people are management in parliament, which is the ministers or whatever. Then you have them as executive member. Then you have them on the management committee, which managing. So you end up in a lot of problem, because even if the executive had passed some decision and they do not like the decision, and they are on the management committee who have to implement those decisions, most of the time those decisions would not be implemented because they are executive and the head. In my opinion, in my AFC, I do not think the people on the management committee should be people from the executive itself. That should be a separate body. That the executive direct the management committee, and the management committee carry out whatever is directed by the executive. But you have a case in a lot of the party, the same people who is at the in Parliament, the same people is on the executive, and the same people is on the management committee. And I would consider what it does is basically remove a lot of the second tier leadership too, because one set of people actually grab up all the position basically in the party, and that need to be changed. It must be like a step upwards, where you have a lower tier take care of either implementation, the one will deal with policies, and the people is in Parliament. But as you said, no part of the world they have system like that.
I want to make a theoretical point, and then we go on to third party. I think one of I am convinced from my research, and I'm convinced from living in Guyana and watching politics all my life, there isn't going to be any change in any political party if one is born tomorrow. If the leadership, there isn't a group outside of the leadership but within the party that have independent financial resources. If you have a party, no matter how charismatic the leader is, you have 2 lawyers or 2 doctors that are in private practice, and they don't depend on anybody for they have access then to people. They have wealthy clients or wealthy patients that they could. You stand a better chance.
They only have 2 votes.
Yeah, but you stand a better chance of putting a brake on the behavior. And I think that is where all political parties, I've seen it in the WPA, I've seen it in the AFC. Sheila Holder called you a shoe repairer. If you have these engineers and businessmen and lawyers and doctors in private practice, they have their own source of income, so they could stand up and tell the big charismatic leader, go to hell, and they don't have to suffer because they have the independent wealth. And that is what I have seen in all parties. I have seen good young people, good people with independent mind, but they got no source of income. So when the party meet, they shut them out because where is their wealth? Anyway, having said all of that, I am taking up your point. Now let's move on to third party.
Let me start off because
he wants to say going to third party.
Just
quickly,
just before
and then quickly, then let's go to third party very quickly.
If you get 2 independent persons, they shut you out. Now take for instance, you talk about rich people. I'm sorry, I have to use myself as an example. I poor like hell. I pass assistant to the president. The party becomes corrupt. I'm here to defend the party simply on television. I'm asked, is there corruption? What am I supposed to do? Lose credibility?
Anyway.
I say, there's corruption. Guess what? I'm fired.
Anyway.
You understand what I'm saying? You are fired.
Let's go to the future of politics in this country. All 3 of you have been in third parties. One, in the case of Malcolm, they won a seat in 1992. In the case of the 2 of you, they won government. It doesn't look good for third party in 24 going on in Guyana. I think most people around the world would argue that they like to see more than 2-3 parties in a country because it opens up debate. It's more watchdogs are around. Every human would agree that you need an opposition. You need critical forces in the country. I don't think there's anyone that would say you don't need an opposition. Beginning with Bissesar alphabetically. What are the possibilities of a third force in the context that the AFC seem to have become dead meat? I think all political analysts seem to feel that that's it for them. But there's ANU coming up. Now, I want to disclose something that I know from my research. I've got good, solid information that Mr. Glenlal is forming a party. My information is not by the way. These are people that supposed to be involved in the involvement in it. And secondly, I know there have been contacts with the EU embassy. I don't know about the Americans or the British or the Canadian. I know they've been approached to the EU embassy about the formation of a political party. So you have ANUG, the AFC, Mr. Lal doing his thing. God help me, now Mr. Lal doing his thing. And now there are something.
You got some other small ones too.
Yeah. What?
And you have URP.
What's happening there? Bissesar, then Carrington, then.
It is a fact. After the conduct of the AFC, the question arises. The question of trust becomes a major factor. There's no doubt in my mind that we probably have over 20% of this population, and it's probably growing, that cut the navel string from the PNC and the PPP. They voted against the party of their traditional choice. So that initial step was taken. Because of the behavior of the AFC, which promised constitutional change and what have you, they departed. They went back to the PPP, some of them. But bear in mind, the PPP had 4 seats. They had 36 seats in 2006. So it's not a case where there's 1 seat majority. They had 36. So to go to 33, they would have lost 3 seats. So the situation is still in flux in that sense. So the problem with the people now who are independent, whom do we trust? Now you talk about ANUG, you talk of Glenn Lal, you talk of Badal.
No, not Badal. Badal told me he's out of politics.
He was there,
I think it's Young Mahathir.
He was there in the last election, that's what I'm saying, but they didn't feature much. Because the AFC did well because a lot of the people came from the parties and people knew them, and at least they had demonstrated while they were there some level of integrity plus blah blah. So people felt we could put some trust in them. They were fighters, revolutionaries. So they betrayed. What do you do now? If you come from the top like this and try to enter politics, I think most likely you will not get much support. People don't trust you. They don't know you. They don't know what you're going to do, especially after we have the Shuman situation where you have an election, he's MP, he becomes deputy speaker, and then he becomes advisor in civil aviation. We have the case of UF, where they won a seat, and then next thing you know, Mansur Nadir is part of the PPP, so another betrayal. Then you have the AFC that sold their soul, the leadership to the APNU for maybe 12 pieces of silver.
30 pieces.
30 pieces of silver. Now, it is my view that the people would like to a third force. There's no question. Everybody said a third force is necessary to create a balance. The plurality may give the PPP the majority, the presidency, but we need a check and balance like you had in 2011. But who to trust? It is my opinion, my humble opinion, that I can safely say to the people of this country, and I'm well known, my history demonstrates they can trust me. And I intend to launch a party to contest the 2025 elections. My party is the United Democratic Front.
So you use this program to launch a party? If I had known that, I'd kick you off your program.
No.
I think I'd kick him off.
No, I don't have a problem. You're not going to vote for me, but they're going to vote for me. And when you kick me off, you do good for me. I'm now like a little hero, you know. So you're not going to do that anyway. The point is, you asked a question about a third force. I think I logically, if I had said they could trust Carrington, and I'm saying that too.
I never know this was coming.
I am saying they could trust.
Malcolm, you can vote for Rajendra, is that so?
No, he's still AFC. I am saying they could trust.
No, he is FC. He's not the AFC. I'm talking about Malcolm DeFreitas.
When I have a chance to speak, I will. Let Bissesar finish.
So I'm saying to you, you asked about third force, you talk about Glenn Lal. I know you're pushing Glenn Lal.
Me?
So why you mention Glenn Lal? If you mention Glenn Lal, why can't mention me?
Well, you could mention yourself.
Exactly.
I mentioned Glenn Lal because my source, I trust. There were 2 Barbicians who told me Mr. Lal approached them, and in fact they consider it. Of course, I want to maintain the integrity of the program, so I'm not going to use condescending words about Mr. Lal's prospects. But good luck, Carrington.
Well, as I said before, since from the starting, Guyana badly need a third force. And I will work and fight for a third force. Guyana can anytime Guyana go with a two-party state, you have a winner take it all, always. Even if it's APNU alone and APNU win, they have it all. The PPP, they have it all. So you need that balance. Long as you have, and the people is there. We have, if you watch at all the election recently, you will notice that a party only win the election by a majority of one seat.
Mm-hmm.
The PPP, also APNU, AFC, they only win by one seat majority. Mm-hmm. So you have about 10,000 people that's actually moved. Long as you have 10 to 15,000 people move from one side to the next side, that party win the election. Even if you have a political party win the government, and if you end up with about the opposition, the combined opposition, where there's individual parties end up with about 10 seats, 12 seats, then they hold the balance of power. Then the government in power have to ask them to approve most of the things that we have in the in terms of the budget and all kind of thing. At the present moment, the government don't have to ask nobody to approve the budget. They just carry the budget. Anytime they want money from the consolidated fund, they just carry a bill to Parliament and just take out the money. But if you had what's called a check, a balance of power, that's why AFC had established to be that balance of power. In terms of whether they use it right or not, the joining of APNU may cause a big problem, because basically, in my very opinion, they weren't all, when we joined APNU, we were to stand actually within the coalition independently. That anything that comes is wrong, we go against. Anything which is right, we support. Even if it's something right from the other side, when PPP was the opposition. If something they come by them, a bill come and it represents what is right, you're supposed to actually support it. That was AFC policy, to support what is right and go against what is wrong. So not because you join in a coalition with a political party and they had doing something, they may want to do something wrong, that mean you should side with them. So they had a lot of battle, I could tell you that, with those particular areas, especially like VAT on education, VAT on water, VAT on
No, but let's come to the third possibility of the third.
You have some. I know fully this party with it's Timothy
Jonas.
Yeah, Timothy Jonas is okay in terms of a third force. If APNU and APNU collate for 2025. They mean you will actually have a two-party where you have just PPP. So Jonas, maybe Bissesar here come in here. Just hope that
But I before Malcolm come in, I looked at that.
You are telling yourself that no third force could make it because of what had transpired with the last couple of years with the AFC.
I think so. And before Malcolm comes in, I watched that clip. I interviewed him, and then I showed the clip. And I want to think that there is an element of validity in what Gaskin is saying. And I know that from personal experience. I went to UG with this gentleman in the 70s. Mm-hmm. So you know how long I've known him? I have known you from the 80s. I regard you as my family. Look, your party got into power. And look how you treated your friend Freddie Kissoon. I got dismissed from UG. I got things thrown in my face. I got locked up for 3 days for an ordinary traffic offense. Okay? I got sued for libel. And you, my friends, got into power. And I never received a phone call from you guys. Well, look, would you like to go back to UG? Would you, none of you ever put a proposal to compensate me for the ombudsman said I was wrongfully dismissed? And you guys were my personal friends, and
you should allow
allow me to talk. Don't go back there. I approached you many times and asked you when we were in government, what do you want? And you know what you told me? You want nothing. You told me that. Then we discussed. I could remember discussing about the ombudsman thing. I asked you to send me the document.
I sent you it. Let me tell you why.
We discussed that over and over.
Let me bring in Malcolm.
Wait, don't cut me now. I personally was pushing for you. I had discussion concerning your we just call it several pay when they fire you and all. Yeah, we had all of that discussion. I and you had those discussions.
I know,
right?
I know, but what came out of it?
The way how you use
but what came out of it?
You told me that you don't want nothing.
You know why I said I didn't want
to
anything?
deal with it.
What? Tell me something. When you come to a human, when you come to somebody and ask them what they want, you know what position you put them in? You know what position you put them to say, I want this, I want that? But what you need to do is come to the person and say, tell me something. Do you think you can play a role in the direction of your country? And but nobody, listen, why I didn't, why?
I think we're straying from the topic.
Anyway, but no, I wanted to say that. I wanted to say, given my high profile, but you guys say you're forming a party. You forming a party, and what you did for Freddie Kissoon when you party was in government, you know how I suffered in this place. And Bissesar, I never got a call from you or anything.
I don't want
You're
to
talking about you.
Me and you used to retell
I don't want to I don't want to sit here
Let us go back. Let us go to the third wall, the third party,
not the
third party phenomenon.
Anyway,
go back to the third.
No, I think when I looked at what Gaskin was saying, he was right. Nobody bullied you guys. You guys never took a forward position and say this must be done. Look,
I did, and you said
David Patterson reached me. Anyway, I don't want to put my.
You're not a topic here, man.
Freddie, let's go back. Let's go to the third party.
Now, I think it's will always be in a position to need an effective third party, which could be a parliamentary check. Unless that third party becomes a parliamentary check on the behaviors, the legislative function, and the accounting function of Parliament, we will always be in a position where the dominant party of the day, which is in government at that time, will do what they want to do irregardless. And that's the problem, the irregardless. Why I say that? Look now, regardless of how we like the PPP, PNC, or whatever, I'm talking about the accounts procedures, which is a constitutional functionality. We're not having that being done in Parliament, the accounting function, right? The accounts committee is not working. Why it's not working is not a problem, the fact that it is not working. Therefore, the taxpayer dollar that is spent in the previous year is not being accounted for so that the persons, that the people in the nation can measure the competence in relation to that spending. And that indeed is a problem. Now, outside of that, the third party phenomena, enabled to check a third party that is in Parliament. Right, it might have the least amount of parliamentary weight, but it has a parliamentary weight which checks the government. So we could have a president whose party is not is not necessarily have control, legislative control. They could have government without legislative control. So they are now forced to operate in the best interest because the checks will put the best interest at hand to be adhered to. Now, can we get to that? I'm hopeful.
If I may.
But no, I'm not finished.
Sorry.
I have found that political parties who just spring up. I seen the last election we had about 3 or 4. People who were
9.
Well, whatever. The point I'm saying, that is too much. When you have that amount of spread, that is too much. If you got like 5 political parties, which have some amount of weight, each one of them got some amount of weight, and 3 or 4 of them get into Parliament.
This news, Israel and Italy got more than 9 anyway.
No.
I don't know why 5.
I'm talking about our culture. Now, when you look at that as a phenomenon, we probably get better governance, regardless of who political party is running. Why? Because they know they can't go too far there. And you know something? We will get less corruption. We will get less corruption because there are more eyes looking at you, number one, and they're looking for different focuses. All right? And that is what we need. Our people are seemingly getting to a position where they are going to be distrustful of not only the politician, but even the political process. And that is a disturbing phenomenon. If we can make sure that people can feel, hey, I have voted, my vote has weight, it was measured, and this is the result throughout, I can accept if my political party I vote for lose. I don't have a problem with that. But the issue we have is in the dynamics of managing our society after the elections. And which directions are we going? And what do we consider development? I don't believe that we should take the Russian idea of development or the American idea of development. We should be creating our own idea of our development. And when we get to that political maturity, this country is going to blossom. And until we get to that, we'll be stymied with the imperialistic functions. True, they call imperialists of the right and imperialists of the left. We will be stymied in that because what? We are adhering to their rules. We are adhering to their concepts. And we have not created an entity, a development coming out of us that we could adhere to. And that is where the problem is.
No.
So we
no,
are.
He's stating, a bit away. I'm sorry about the development process.
In politics, you got to get
before you deal with the development process, we are dealing with who can run the process to do that change.
Yeah,
whether you'll allow whether a majoritarian party will do what you're talking about, and that's the issue. They will not. That is why we are talking of the check and balance of the third fourth. Right. But let me just say this: in England, where you have these coalitions.
England don't have a coalition.
No, UK you have a minority government, but they depend on votes. They have a minority.
UK don't have a minority government.
They don't?
No, UK have a ruling party that has 80 parliamentary seats more than the opposition. Not the UK.
But in any case, if you get no confidence against the Prime Minister, you don't have to go to election. You can elect back somebody from within the party to take the position, like what happened with Sunak and the other guy. But in our that is why in our constitution is different. When I was going to high school, I studied British Constitution.
You got to be quick, yeah?
I studied.
Very brief.
I had to write it at the exam. I normally focus on the point if you recognize that.
Yeah, very brief. Our time is going.
When we studied British Constitution, and I knew British Constitution, in our country, we should have Constitution being taught in our secondary school, so that our people will understand our Constitution. And our Constitution says this: the president is elected via the party. So you elect the party and you get the president and you get a majority in parliament. Right away, we have 3 sectors of the economy that are supposed to be independent. But we have a president of a party that has a majority in parliament. So right away, the party in power controls the executive and controls the legislative. So they have control of 2 sectors of the so-called 3 independent sectors of this government. Secondly,
that's the way it is in the world.
No. That's not the way it is in the world.
Not necessarily, sorry.
What you mean?
Not necessarily.
Allow me to finish first, please.
Name me a country.
Allow me to finish. Don't divert. Don't divert. Allow me to finish my point. Right now, we consult with the opposition and we elect our judges and so on, you know. But here again, who appoints the judges? We'll have to consult the ruling party. So we got another.
That's not true.
Hold on. Yes.
That's not true.
We got another.
Judicial Service Commission is not the United States.
So who appoints the Judicial Service Commission? Who appoints the Judicial
Service Commission? Automatically the Chancellor and the Chief Justice is part of the
Freddie, yes, it's part. Freddie, who appoints them? Who keeps them acting and get them under control? Now,
hold it.
Is wildness. Take the Procurement Commission.
Yeah.
The Procurement Commission is a reasonably independent one. You know why? You need both parties to vote in order for that commission to be comprised. In the case of the Public Service Commission, the Judicial Service Commission, the ERC.
But
you
we
don't
got
have
to go.
that. The ruling government decides who's going to be.
You're going to wrap up now. All three of you have to wrap up now.
So they control half of the judiciary.
Beginning with you.
So we get dictatorship.
We don't have no dictatorship in
we
there.
have
For God's sake,
a constitutional dictatorship because the government controls 2.5 of the 3 sectors.
You just said you're forming a party here. You just said you're forming a party here. Why anyone should trust you when the AFC, you negotiate.
No, you're attacking me personally.
No.
I know you love the people.
No.
But don't attack me.
I'm attacking you personally. You were part of the AFC. You were negotiating the Commons-Borg Accord. The AFC got into power and carry this country backward. And then you come in and say, then you come and say,
I did not say. When I did that, I resigned.
Sorry, we had more
I
time.
resigned.
That's it.
I resigned.
Before we
don't attack me. I resigned.
All right, Bissesar, let me hear Michael.
That's why you can trust me.
30 seconds and then
I hadn't wished our people Happy New Year. I mean, this is the first program for me for the year. I'd like to wish all Guyanese Happy New Year. And I would like to say that this was budget period. We never even had a discussion in terms of the budget. The budget is big. It's a way you call
Fred can call us next week.
I will call it a contractor paradise, a lot of money in terms of contracts and those type of thing. I would like to see that a lot of the contracts that go out, we have proper roads, anything that they do that are done properly. We need to ensure that the engineers do proper investigation and make sure that the money that we are spending in development is actually well spent across the country. And I'd like to call to all Guyanese, remember the money that we coming from oil. We will be getting about approximately $1 billion or $1 trillion and over this year in revenue. The money is the people's money, and you go out, you apply for contracts and those type of things and see what best you can do for your country. I'm working, trying to see what I can do, but I want you to, when 2025 election come, you support small parties, support them, so we could prevent a winner-take-all government, and we will have some power. The smaller people have some power in parliament.
Jerry Gavaya say we have to nurture our Portuguese politicians. So, have we nurtured him this evening?
Well, I think I'm independent enough to stand up on my own feet, and I don't understand why Jerry would say something like this when Jerry himself is a politician and he has been a member of a political party and was in the House of Parliament as an MP.
Jerry Gavaya was a member of Parliament.
Yes, he was a member.
Jerry Gavaya?
Yes, he was a member. Jerry Gavaya was
No, you got your facts wrong. Anyway,
long ago he was a member. He was a member.
How long ago?
Well, anyhow,
we got to go now. Quickly, Malcolm.
I think that the idea of a third party should always be an option. And I think that we should regard the personnel and the persons who are supporting different third parties as they come up, and see which one is the best that you think that can get into Parliament and be a legislative check on the other groups. So to make sure that we have a better Guyana, because without legislative checks, power of itself, when people adhere to power, sometimes they get a little outside power tests character. And many characters have failed.
There was that theoretical adumbration. We got to go. It's always interesting talking to people with political experience, and all three of you have tremendous political experience. Michael Carrington, we'll do this again. I like the man time, man. I like the color purple, which is just always nice to have you. This has been the Freddie Kissoon Gildarie Show. We will see you on Wednesday as usual. Our time is up. The operator keeps telling me we're over time, so we got to observe rights of workers. These operators can't go home late. Thanks for being with us. As I normally say, catch you later. Bye-bye.